Hello, insatiable listeners. Well, we just finished another rich podcasting season where we looked at the various angles of inconsistency. We are now on a season break until September 18th, when we will be back with a dynamite new season. Mark your calendars for September 18th when we return. Originally, I thought our next season theme would be on fertility, but it's taking some interesting twists and turns. So it's kind of about that and kind of not. Regardless where you are in your menstrual or parenting cycle, next season will get you thinking and ahaing about how the cycle of life influences our food habits and choices, and how we need to harmonize our food and wellness based on where we find ourselves hormonally, emotionally, and spiritually. In the meantime, I hope those of you who feel the call will join us in my live Why Am I Eating This Now group program, which opens for registration on August 5th. Truly, this program is life-changing, and it's the last chance to work with me until March 2020, because I am going on a 6-week maternity break from whenever this bambino is born until 6 weeks out. And my private practice is full until April 2020. So you can find details for the Why Am I Eating This Now live group program, which again, it only runs once a year, at allyshapiro.com/why-am-I-eating-this-now-live-group. Okay, and now on to a rebroadcast of some previous Insatiable episodes where a second listen is worthwhile. Enjoy. You know battling food in your body doesn't work. You want to love and accept yourself. And because you're insatiable, you want results too. And wouldn't you know, you bring the same intensity to your life, wanting to maximize your time, potential, and experiences you have here on this beautiful and wondrous planet Earth. Fair warning, it will be a roller coaster, but for those insatiable, that's your prime time to thrive. We're here to say yes to the hunger of wanting it all. I'm your co-host, Allie Shapiro, a health coach who helps people end the losing battle of dieting and find a truce with food.
And I'm Juliette Berg, nutritionist, fitness expert, and the co-owner of Unite Fitness Studio franchise.
Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Insatiable Podcast, How to Exercise for Your Body Type. Today, I am going to be taking the interview role to interview Juliette on some common questions I hear from my clients and I myself have right now about exercising, figuring out what exercise type works best for your body, and then clearing up some confusion and overwhelm that often leaves people taking no action at all. So that's what we've got on tap for you today. So Juliette, I am so excited to interview you because, as we were saying in earlier episodes, my resolution or intention this year is really to be more active. And the other day I switched gyms and it was like 7:30 in the morning. It was snowing outside and I was up walking to the gym and I was like, who am I?
Awesome.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, in I think it was episode 4, we talked about how we have to, or our New Year's resolution episode about how you have to change your identity a lot of times, thinking of yourself differently. And it's funny, I used to be really into exercise when I was in high school and college. I would like exercise first thing in the morning. I was obsessed with it because I was like overeating. And then I went through this phase where exercise was important, but I would do it, it just wasn't, I wasn't gripping it so hard. And so
It
now
wasn't attached to guilt anymore. So it can be a little bit harder for some people to actually do exercise if there's not a guilt attached to it. And you're just doing it because it's healthy for you.
Yeah. I feel like I almost had to swing the other way. I mean, I definitely have been relatively consistent, but not as, I've been also consistently inconsistent. But now I'm back to this phase where I'm like, oh my God, I'm someone who in the winter, now granted, I love winter more than summer, but at least when it comes to moving my body, because summer I'm just like overheated and blah. But I was like, who am I? And so now that I'm like back into it, which, I was doing it in the latter part of the year, but I took a little break in December because my arm was hurting. But I have an awesome client who's a physical therapist, gave me some exercises to fix that, along with my amazing Rebel desk, my standing desk that I love. I'm back in it. Like I'm in it. I don't have any injuries right now, all that stuff. And so I was like, okay, now that I'm doing all this stuff, I wanted to ask you some major questions that I'm also hearing my clients, talk about with their own exercise routine. Because to your point, we all have different motivations, right? Some people are trying to lose weight. Some people are trying to tone. Some people just want to work out their heart, whatever it is. So I'm excited that you're going to be in the hot seat today. Are you ready for it?
Yes, I'm ready. Go for it.
Yeah. All right. And so the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is I have noticed in my practice when it comes to nutrition that I help people figure out the right macronutrient combinations for them by figuring out what I call if they're a slow, a medium, or a fast burner. Meaning the slow burners tend to do better with the vegan, vegetarian diets. The medium burners tend to do better with like a Mediterranean-like diet. And then the fast burners tend to do better with like paleo, ketogenic, with obviously some variation in between, but it's a great place for people to start figuring out what works best for them. And so I was wondering, in that same vein, have you noticed that different body types respond different to different exercise types? And I ask this because, in high school and in college, I used to run like 5 or 6 miles every morning. And like, I was super skinny for, in high school, and college was all over the place. But in high school, I was really thin. But looking back on that, like there was so much terror in not running. And then I was also like exhausted afterwards. Versus now I find I do really well with energy, and also my appetite doesn't go through the roof when I'm doing more strength training and shorter intervals, not like the long running type. Yet I know some of my clients, they love running. They feel amazing after it. And so I'm just wondering what's up with that?
Yeah, just to your point about food, and you're looking at, the slow, medium, and fast burners, there's definitely a correlation between body types and exercise, and what exercise type is going to be a better fit for people. And we can actually kind of equate it to the slow, medium, and fast burners. So, in the fitness world, we like to talk about the endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph body types. And the endomorph body type is usually a heavier set, higher body fat. They have more propensity towards weight gain and holding on and storing weight. And then the mesomorph is usually a more medium build, a lot more muscle tone naturally to their body. And they have a tendency, when they put their mind to it, they can lose weight fast, or they can also gain weight fast, or they can kind of just maintain, if they're doing the right things with their diet and exercise, a very muscular, lean physique. You would see a lot of bodybuilders have that mesomorphic body type. And then the ectomorph is, think about your marathon runner, those who are naturally on the much more thinner side. Doesn't necessarily mean they're lean, meaning they don't necessarily have a ton of muscle tone, but they're very thin and they can do, a lot of endurance work and all of that. So, and then I think I was talking to you about this earlier before we started the podcast, Allie, that the whole endo, meso, ectomorph correlates a lot to different cultures too. In Eastern medicine, there is the Ayurvedic medicine, and there's something called the Vata dosha, the Pitta dosha, and the Kapha dosha. And if you think about the body types that they're describing, they're pretty much exactly on point with what I was saying in Western culture with the endo, meso, and ecto. We're going to throw out a lot of words today, but and take it with a grain of salt to an extent. To those of you who are listening, there's never any real major concrete, like, this is the truth, as far as scientific evidence goes. But I think that there's validity to it, because if you are looking at all of these different Western and Eastern philosophies and they're all saying something similar, it's like, well, there does seem to be something to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But one of the challenges, though, that I find with Western science is they tend to try to look at a bell curve instead of looking at bell curves within bell curves. So none of us has, I don't know anyone who has a bell curve health experience overall, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so that by itself means that there's all these variables. So that's kind of a whole other topic. But yeah, I think it's really fun. I mean, you can start to, just so for our listeners to kind of get a sense, you can take free quizzes online to figure out what your Ayurvedic type is. But pretty quickly, like the Vata people who you're corresponding to, the marathon type runners, they tend to be the long and lithe yoga instructors. And that same body type, they tend to be associated with like very creative and unstructured, airy. Yeah. And the winter season that we're in right now. So,
and yet I've seen so many marathon runners that they are super type A, not creative and not airy. So it's like you can only take it so much.
Well, but then there's your body type and your mental type too. So, and then there's the Pitta people, which Juliet and I are, which are more the muscular type, I think average build, type A personalities in general. And it's also a lot of my clients are this way. I've found the secret society of people who hate the summer humidity. I thought it was the only person, but it's like, a lot of my clients feel the same way.
I know. And I say like now with Philly getting so humid, I'm like, well, if I wanted to live in Florida, I would. Like, why am I living in Philly? It's the same. It feels exactly like it does in Florida now. As the climate is changing, the humidity here is just going up and up and up every year. So for Pittas, it's like a torturous season for us.
Totally. Yeah. They predict in 10 years, Pittsburgh will be the similar climate to Washington, DC. And I'm like, oh my God. Cause when Carlos and I first met, he was living there and those summers were awful. I was like, oh, this is like swamp, but we'll worry about that in 10 years. But the Pitta people tend to be, I guess I forget the exact term you use, but they're the medium burners, Mediterranean diet, but they can go often until but they're bad at recognizing that they can go, and then they just like drop and fall. And then what you were describing as the kapha or I guess the bigger bone has a tendency to gain weight is, I guess, equivalent to the kapha in Ayurvedic medicine. Kapha people, emotionally, everyone likes them. They're very easy to get along with. And then they do have the bigger build of the body types. So, you can also be though, like I was just saying, a physical type of one and then mentally another. But so really think about your physical type.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about today, is the physical type.
Yeah. Now here's my question though with this. And you're right. Like take it with a grain of salt, but how do we know what we are truly versus maybe what we are because we forced ourselves to think that running is who we are, or we think that we gain weight very easily because we're eating the wrong types of food and, stressed out. So how, for someone who is like, all right, I want to make sure I'm working out relatively, at least, is there anything that you notice in people's natural preferences? Like if they think about if they shelve the shoulds, like I should be getting in flexibility, strength, and cardio, like rather than thinking about that stuff, is there anything that either of the types gravitate towards or they find makes them feel really good?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I typically will really interview a client and will ask them to kind of date back further into their, late teens, early adulthood to kind of see what their body type was like then. Because you were asking about, if they've changed their body type for doing a certain kind of exercise, but we all have a propensity towards something and we kind of have an all knowing of what that is. So I've always known since I was younger that I have a propensity towards being more muscular. Even when, I was a much younger in my teens, I was like, my leg muscles are way bigger than everybody else's, like you just kind of know that. Or, if you're really thin and you were always underweight growing up, so you kind of know those things, I think, earlier on. And then a lot of times I'll have clients who will say to me things like, oh, I hate running, but I make myself do it because it works. And that's my indicator of like, you're not a runner. You know what I mean? If you hate running, it's not, so don't, and they're the ones who are getting shin splints all the time and Achilles tendonitis. And I'm like, your body is telling you something. It's telling you that it does not like running 5+ miles. And those are the clients that I say, if you are saying running works for you, then you're going to be better doing, 30 minutes of high intensity interval training. And typically the Pitta body type, the ones that I'm referring to, the ones that are the medium build, the medium burners, they really like doing like they're fiery. So give them some sprints to do and they're like, oh, this is great. I don't have to run 10 miles and I get the same effect sprinting for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 15 minutes. Perfect, So,
oh my God, that's totally my thought process. I'm like, I can get more done with less. Yes. Yeah, and I'd rather do the intense. Yeah. There you go. You brought up such an interesting point about they're saying, well, this works for me. And I have found that people it all depends on what you're measuring. To your point, they're getting injured. So what are they measuring that they think it's working? And this is very common. I mean, this is what I work on with my clients. Are we measuring, right? If we're not going to measure the scale, what is better to measure for you with your goals? Yeah. And so how do you get people to see like, are you sure this is working?
So I'm measuring. So obviously if they're getting injured, then that's like, okay, I don't care how much this is working. If you've lost a pound on the scale, then we're changing this, right? Because you're not going to be able to sustain this, and injury is a horrible thing. So that's the clear way of saying, okay, this is not working for you. The other thing that's even bigger than that, I think the first place to start is, are you enjoying what you're doing in some capacity? And if they're not enjoying it, then it's not worth doing, because really to have a sustainable exercise routine, and it can change as you go. I don't like the same kind of exercise I do currently that I did, 5 years ago, that I did 10 years ago. And I probably will like something else in the next 5 years. And I think that's okay. But you have to connect to what you're doing and actually like it, because if it's a struggle emotionally, it's going to be a struggle for you physically, which I think then leads to injury, because you're stressing your body out.
That's a really good answer. And I think I would also add, and tell me, I mean, your thoughts on this, but I think also when talking about that, a big shift in my own exercise came when I stopped like judging what I look like in the mirror, stopped judging like, oh, I've checked off the box. I got my, I went on the elliptical for 50 minutes, even though I was like reading a magazine, but like, hey, we all got to start somewhere, right?
You know what? I actually find that so cathartic and enjoyable. I know some people find that like super torturous to get on an elliptical for reading a magazine. I
hate the elliptical.
I mean, I don't do it because it doesn't work for what my goals are. But like if I'm stressed out, that would just make me feel good. I like, sweating like that for that amount of time. I enjoy it. But that's the thing. I enjoy that. So
yeah. I definitely do not. But, not only is it enjoying the process, but I think it's also looking at how you feel for the next several hours afterwards. Because, I think one of the things that's been a huge eye opener to me is like, and has made me feel that I can trust cutting back on cardio these past several years. It's like, if I probably couldn't even run 5 miles anymore. I mean, if I wanted to, I could work up to it. But like, when I look back, I used to be exhausted after those runs. And, there's research that shows that when people look at exercise as punishment, which to me, if you're not paying attention, no wonder you start to build it up, right? Because you're like, not only do I hate it afterwards, but then like, your body's registering it that you're either injured or exhausted afterwards. When people view exercise as this punishment, they tend to eat more to reward themselves. And what's crazy is they gain weight because they underestimate how much they're eating and they overestimate how much they've burned. Like, it's almost like they're like, that was awful. I must have burned 1,000 calories.
I literally tell people, you can't expect to lose weight from exercise. This is not why you're exercising. You're really, it's a little bonus as far as caloric burn goes. Think of it as like a bonus, but it's not what you need to rely on for weight loss. It's all about food if you're trying to lose weight. So it's about food and taking care of your emotional health and, stress and sleep and all of that, and your hormonal health. But as far as like, calories out, for calories in with exercise, it does not equate. I mean, one cookie, an hour and a half on a treadmill, it's not the same thing.
Well, that's interesting because most people will say for weight loss, it's like 80% food, 20% weight loss. But see, I find when it comes to, for me, the habit that sometimes goes in and out that I'm always trying to work on is like an after dinner sweet. And I find that exercise, it recharges me in a way that I don't need that. So it's not so much, oh, what can I eat? But it's what it eliminates in my life.
That's good. Then that means that you're probably doing the right amount or the right type, because as you were saying, when somebody is not doing that and they're using exercise for punishment and then they're rewarding themselves with food, then it actually causes them to be eating more at night because, well, for a multitude of reasons, one being that they're just thinking, oh, I burned a lot of calories today, so I can afford to do this. Another one just being that they're stressed and their body's tired and they just start craving things.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, there's when you really get to be able to see it with a certain lens, you see that our biology is telling a story, right? Like, and our emotions are telling the story of our biology. They're totally connected. So let's go back to this concept of different body types. So if someone's goals, I know you just said, but if someone's health goals are weight loss, what would you recommend? I mean, first, knowing that people need to start with what they like, but what you like, for example, cardio intervals, right? Which is important for, I would imagine, all types. We'll get to that. But something like interval training, right? Unite does interval training. Bar Method does interval training, right? So, or do they?
It depends on how you're describing interval training, what you mean by that. I mean, I would say that interval training is, bringing your cardiovascular system way up, your heart rate really high, and then dropping it down, and then, back up and back down again. So there's usually some sort of the HIIT training, like high intensity training going along with that. So like yoga, bar, they're much more, heart rate is much lower the whole time. It's a little bit more steady state training.
Okay, so that's good to know. So then maybe what we can do that I think would be really helpful for people listening is let's, for the different types, what you recommend, and then what that looks like when they're going to the JCC or the YMCA, or they have Class Pass, or if they go to Unite, I guess they have that all taken care of for them, like the thought process, or yeah. So if you're in Philly or in Jersey are you guys online? Aren't you coming online?
We do have a virtual boot camp so people can do their workouts anywhere. And then we're expanding now nationally, but yeah, people can do it online as well.
Okay, cool. So let's start with what I think Kapha is an easier Kapha rather than what was it, ectomorph or slow burner.
Yeah.
Those are the people who are naturally lean, are they taller, or does it matter?
So the Vata we'll talk about.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
So Vata, also ectomorph. They're the naturally lean, I hate to use the word wafy. It doesn't sound good, but that's the word that came to my mind,
Well, it kind of is, but our culture makes that puts a value on that. So it feels like, it's people that I think most people would be like, oh, if I just look like them.
Yes. And I think that, so it's so interesting because I'll have clients who say, I want that yoga body type, that long, lean muscle body type. So they start doing they do the exercises that they would see that body type in. They do the Pilates and the yoga, and they're like, nothing is changing. I look the same. And I'm like, because it's not the workout that's doing that. They already had the propensity to that body type. And that's a good workout for them because it feels good for them and it worked. You know what I mean? It was already there.
Yeah, it's a good fit for them because it's already, but then also sometimes we need to do what's not, I'm getting off on a tangent. But so those type of people, like if the long lean, they excel at marathon training, triathlete, or I would say half marathon training, whatever. What would you recommend for them if their goals are weight loss and toning? Not anything not that they're not in a training for a race and peak performance. They want to lose weight or tone. What would you recommend from a 7-day? I mean, not that they should exercise 7 days a week, but what would their average week look like?
I would say that typically somebody like that isn't necessarily looking for a lot of weight loss, but what I see a lot is a person who's skinny fat, meaning that they look very, very thin, but their body fat percentage is actually on the higher side, meaning that their muscle tone isn't of great quality. So for somebody like that, I would say that they should incorporate 2 to 3 days a week of at least 30 minutes of strength training so that they can get their muscle mass up, which will help then to decrease their body fat. So the little pooch that they have in their belly, the flabby arms, that this is small things that they're complaining about, even though, if you see them in their clothes, to you and I, we'd be like, oh my God, they have that ideal model type, but that's what I would say for somebody who's looking to have a better physique with that body type, definitely needs to incorporate is 2 to 3 days of strength training. And that's, just picking up some weights and just doing some upper body work, some lower body work, nothing that intense, but just that little bit will really help them.
Okay. And by not intense, do you mean like 3-pound weights? Or, if they can lift up 10, is it just all relative to what their current strength is?
Yeah, I think that they could get away with doing lighter weights at higher reps. I think that they a bar class, for example, wouldn't be a bad thing. I think something a little bit more than just yoga and Pilates. So something more than body weight. So something where you actually are creating a deeper burn in the muscle to kind of break the muscle tissue down to then rebuild again. Or they could pick up like moderate weights. I don't think they need to be doing anything like powerlifting or anything super heavy, but something that at least they're feeling like the muscles are going to exhaustion. Mm-hmm. You don't want to feel like when you're lifting weights that you could just go all day, like the 1 pound weights, You definitely want to feel like, oh my God, I want to put my arm down because my arms are burning right now.
Yeah. It's like 6 o'clock at night. Oh my God, I'm still lifting this. It's like, I forgot to eat. I'm still lifting this.
Yeah. Definitely. It's okay. I think here, I don't know if you have this question on your list, but it's a question that I get all the time, which is like, will I bulk up from lifting weights? I don't want to get bulky. A lot of women are really, really concerned with that. And the answer to that is no, you will not get bulky. It takes a lot for a woman to gain muscle because we don't have as much testosterone as a man does. And also, if you really, are trying to gain lean mass, somebody who's doing like a figure competition or bodybuilding, you have to eat a lot to do that. And you have to do a lot of volume training and heavier weightlifting. Most of us don't have the time of day to do that. So it does, that's not something I ever see people doing unless they're doing that because they're trying to get bulkier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find
so like spinning classes, people ask me that, will putting this heavy resistance on the bike make my legs bulk up? And it does not. So
yeah, no, I hear that a lot for sure. Okay. So the Vata Thin Marathon-esque live yoga body, 2 to 3 times a week of weights. And then what about cardio and flexibility and toning?
Yeah, the toning, we've got with the weight training and everything like that. And toning, just to clear this up for everybody, is a totally fake word. Like there's no such thing as toning.
As I said that, I was like, what does that even mean?
I know, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just it's
a marketing term.
It's a marketing term. Toning is like you can't spot reduce an area. So you can't just do crunches and then like your body fat in your belly will disappear. It's like, if you chew a lot of gum, your cheeks aren't going to get, svelte. You're not going to have high cheekbones all of a sudden, So that is just not, that's not how it works, unfortunately. But it's an overall body fat reduction. Your body just decides where it's going to lose it first. It doesn't, I have a really thin, long face naturally. And if I lose weight, my face gets even thinner. I'm like, what the hell? It's not fair. It's not, but that's just your body it'll just do what it wants to do. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. So just get back to those people. So they should do no toning, 2 to 3 days of strength training, and then they can do cardio the other day.
Yeah. No, I think that they can do cardio the other days. They could incorporate the cardio on the same day, if they want to do, one of their shorter runs or something, if they are doing long runs. And I definitely, unless you're training for something specific, you really don't need to be working out for more than an hour a day. If you want to just have a lot of energy, and if you're not somebody that's, focusing so much on sports nutrition, because you're going to get tired if you're doing that,
Oh yeah. Law of diminishing returns.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to have vitality and energy for other things in your life. So, and it's totally diminishing returns. You don't need to do more than that.
Well, and the
So,
psychological buildup. It's like, oh my God, I've got to hit like 90 minutes of, I mean, I've never run that much. Well, I did do the Broad Street run once, but I mean, the buildup of thinking that you have to train that much, you start to avoid it.
or not, or you just are, embrace it and have no life. I have friends that I shouldn't say have no life. If they really enjoy it, then it's,
Well, there's a
it's just part
community.
of what they're doing. But I have friends who are like, okay, I have 3 to 4 hours on a Sunday where that's what they're doing. They're running.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
are multiple worlds out there.
there are, yeah. I mean, that's not going to be me. But yeah, I mean, so that's that type. That's the ectomorph. You could call it the vata. Then there's the pitta or the mesomorph, which is the more medium build, propensity towards more muscle on their body, and can gain weight quickly, could lose weight quickly, depending on what they're doing with their nutrition. And that type really has to be careful about, I would say, how much cardio that they're doing. And this is the reason why. Too much cardio, especially aerobic cardio, which is where your heart rate is just kind of the same for a long period. For example, long distance running or being on an elliptical for, 45 minutes to an hour creates cortisol in your body. It actually releases a stress hormone. So for that body type, their hormones are a little bit more sensitive to that. So that whole can gain weight quickly, can lose weight quickly, can have body fat on them instead of being like the lean, mean muscle machine that they have the potential for, can get affected by too much cardiovascular activity.
Mm.
And can attest to this with my own training. For so many years, I did so much cardio, and I was like, my body fat was just like a lot higher than it needed to be. When I cut back the cardio and just focused more on weight training and interval training, so my cardio was like we were talking about, sprinting and, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or what, doing things more like the Unite workout, what I do on a daily basis with people. That's a really good workout for that type typically.
Yeah. So I was out in San Francisco in October, and my sister belongs to Equinox, and they have this class called Precision Running, which is basically track practice on treadmills in a group. And since I love being with people when I work out, it was so fun. But we did like interval training, and I got a high from it. I mean, it was probably, I think the class was 30 minutes. I think we were there for 40 minutes, but between warm up and cool down, it was like 30 minutes. But it was only really like the sprinting part of it was maybe a total of like 12 minutes of the whole class or something. But I don't sweat a lot. I mean, that's part of like my body's like, Achilles heel. I mean, the type of cancer I had is from lack of Hodgkin's disease is like your lymphatic system is sluggish. So I do not sweat a lot. But after that class, I was like, this works for me so well because I was just sweating, and I had this, like I said, a high from it that I often get from weight training, but that I've never gotten from twice as long of a run. And it just reinforced to me that like, yes, you need to do this. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. That's not an easy workout, people. just that's one that you really are pushing yourself to more of a max effort, but it's a reasonable amount of time. So you can kind of be like, all right, this is not a long time, so I can get through this.
Yeah. And if that's your personality too, to just be like, all right, let's hit it and get out. I mean, to me, it makes it well. And just for anyone listening, you can Google like Equinox Precision Running, and different magazines have done free workouts. So when I got back from there, because obviously there's no Equinox in Pittsburgh, I downloaded like 3 different types of workouts that based on the trainer who created the Equinox Precision Running class. And I've been doing those on my own, like on a treadmill, now that my neck is better. And it's like you do like one set of 10 minutes is all about speed. The other set is hills and intervals. Nice. And I downloaded some new music, and it's like, I can run and do that, on my lunch break, or even if it's like, I have clients and then I have to do it in the evening, knowing that I'm just running for like going to run up there, hit the treadmill for 30 minutes and back. I make it there. So if anyone's feeling pitta and, and that they would do better with those type of intervals. So that's just Google precision running Equinox sample workouts online, and you'll get a bunch that work. And what I love about the precision running class is you start with your personal best. So you don't have to be on some predetermined personal best. You figure out where you are right now. And then the great thing is because just like the body adapts, as you get stronger, then you can increase your speed, and you're still getting the same workout as when you first started because it's all relative, but it continually challenges you. So how many days a week do you think those of us who are this pitta, average build, prone towards muscularity should be doing that type of interval training?
3 to 5 days, depending on how much you like it. Like if you really, really like it, go for the 5, because, if it's something that helps you with stress relief and you just become addicted to it, which oftentimes I find that those type A clients do, and it's part of their stress relief process. Or, 3, I would say 3 minimum. And, because it's so intense and effective for the short amount of time, that's why, it can be 3 minimum and, to 5 max. And I would say you do need to give your body a day or two because of how intense it is. You don't want to stress out your joints and everything with when you're sprinting or when you're lifting heavy weights. And, just to talk about the weight training part of it, you want to be lifting weights that are more max effort for you. So, the 6 to 12 repetition range where you're really, really maxing out your effort as far as the last rep, you can barely lift the weight.
Interesting. So should you be doing then weights the same day you do the high interval? How many days a week should you be doing weights?
I would say the same amount, 3 to 5. So you could do it together where you're doing, a good anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes of the cardio intervals. And then again, the same thing, sort of, I would say 25 minutes of strength training to 40, depending on, what muscle groups you're hitting. And you can divide up your, the body parts. So you can do like an upper body day and a lower body day, and then, and then a total body day. I would say that's a good split for people.
Okay. And their type of weightlifting, just to reconfirm, isn't like compared to the lightweight Vata types, they need to be doing stuff that on the last rep, they can barely finish.
Yeah. So it's instead of muscle fatigue, which is what the other, with the lighter weights where you're feeling like that burning feeling, this kind of weight training I'm talking about is like muscle failure, where you're like, I cannot press this weight one more time. Like it's not happening. If I do one more push up, my face is going to face plant onto the floor.
And should you face plant on the floor? I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully you're on a mat, Oh my God. I'm having a flashback to a yoga class I took where I was attempting a crow pose, which is like a balance it's an arm balance where you put your knees behind your elbows. And I face planted and then my head hit the hardwood, and it was just, it was one of those like super embarrassing moments.
That's why one thing not to like come back to Equinox, but they have these like lavender infused towels. And I was like, oh my God, like I would face plant on one of those.
I wish I had that, but this yoga class didn't have that. I just embarrassed myself, but it's okay.
Okay. So the pitta type of people need to be doing like 3 to 5 days or probably 5 days total, and getting in some, weight training and those intervals. And then maybe day 6, do some yoga or something.
Yeah. I would say that's not a bad idea for the pitta. It's not. So I just want to be clear that just because one exercise might be better suited for another doesn't mean that you can't try these different exercises, see what works for you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, what do you enjoy doing? What feels the best is really what you want to be listening to with yourself. And for pitta, I think that the pitta types often stray away from yoga and Pilates and the slower, more breath work, type of exercises, because they're a lot of times going, can't stop moving, can't stop thinking. And so that kind of those kinds of exercise work slows you down is not a bad idea to throw in there, 1 or 2 times a week for mental and emotional relief.
Yeah. No, for sure. Oh my God. Well, I find too, a lot of my clients, they will, whether it's Bikram or like Baptiste or something hot yoga, that will be like a really good entry point into them because they still feel like they're accomplishing or that
That's how I got into yoga. I hated yoga years ago. It was because I took a class that was, wasn't a heated class. It wasn't a vinyasa. It wasn't hard. It was just really about the meditative part of it and and the practice and the breath. And I was like, this is so slow and awful. I can't stand this. And then it wasn't until, about 7 years ago when I was introduced to power yoga, hot yoga. And, I was just like, holy shit, this is hard. I'm sweating more than I've ever sweat in my life. It's like, you think, oh, I'm getting something out of this, but that was an entry point for me to actually understand how amazing yoga is. But yeah, so for those of you who are like, I don't like yoga, it's so slow, it's not hard, try a power yoga class in a heated room. It's not, 105 like Bikram. It's usually about 90 degrees, but it's just enough where you just start sweating your face off. So.
Well, and I remember when I was working with you, because Juliet, people, even though we've mentioned that you're at Unite and you're the fitness and nutrition director there and vice president, and also teach at Flywheel, you're also a certified yoga teacher, and you were my yoga teacher for a while. And I remember you really helping me with alignment, and I was like, it wasn't until I really started focusing on my core, like the internal focus on my core and the alignment, that I was like, this is fucking hard. Like, it's so, because I was overcompensating with my flexibility. And when you do that, you're out of alignment and all that stuff. But when you really focus on yoga and work on like putting your ego to the side, I mean, it took me, 10 years, like 7 years to not like worry about what it looked like, but really focus internally. It is an amazing workout. So also be sure that you're really doing yoga before you say that it's not hard.
Yeah, for sure. And the meditative piece of it, besides the breathing element, is really connecting to the muscles in your body and what muscles you're using and firing versus just, locking out your joints and just like stretching. Like you can do a forward fold and just be locking your knees out and trying to straighten your legs as hard as you can. But that's not what it really is about. It's about bending the knees a little bit, engaging the quadricep muscles to then lengthen the hamstring muscles, to then squeeze the lower belly in, to then engage the abdominal muscles, to feel the side obliques turning on. Like there's so much muscle recruitment that goes into yoga that I think it is so useful to actually do that, to then help you with other kinds of exercise. Anything you do, weight training, bar, any other, form of exercise, you'll then be recruiting and turning on the right muscles. So yoga is like that kind of the foundation of movement. It's been around for, thousands of years, way longer than any weight training or anything else that has been around. So
I love that you brought that up. That's such a good point. That mindfulness has helped me so much with just my form when I'm lifting and everything, because my natural inclination is to like my shoulders to be up. And now I'm like, okay, roll the shoulders back, and like learning what your abdomen muscles like actually start at your kneecaps, and like flexing all of that. And I'm like, whoa, like this is a different experience now. And that's what I love. You can make any exercise intense. Like even if an instructor, if I don't go to the early AM class, the next class behind me, it tends to be an older crowd, and it's technically the same class, but like the moves aren't as hard. But I'm like, oh, I know how to crank up this intensity because I can just even concentrate on my form even more. And it feels so much more intense when I'm really that mindful.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people you can either be going through the motions right now of these exercises or stretches, or you can actually just start to think about what muscles what you're working, what you're firing, what's going on in your body, and create that connection. And then your calorie burn is going to go up, your muscle recruitment is going to go up, and you're going to be getting more bang for your buck when you're working out.
Yeah, the phrase that came to mind is you can either go through the motion or be the motion.
Yeah.
I love getting philosophical. All right.
So last one, kapha.
Yes.
Kapha, endomorph. I just stare at a bagel and I gain 5 pounds. That's like those are the clients that I'm getting that were say that's what, they are. They do have a higher body fat. Those are the powerhouse clients though, I'll tell you, or powerhouse, people, humans. They might be a little bit more overweight naturally or have higher body fat, but those are the strong ass people. Like when you see the power lifters and the strongmen competition, you wonder, well, how are these guys doing this or women doing this? They look overweight. Well, that's your body type is more that, but as far as their power and their strength, they're extremely powerful and strong. So
Well,
I
and
would say,
is that the more curvy women too, where they just look very sexy? And I mean, we see this in the I guess they're calling them plus size models now. I mean, to me, they're just normal size, but
yeah,
plus size is 8, I think. I mean, how do you know?
sad.
I know, I know. I mean, things are changing for sure. But I've noticed as like now that I'm really comfortable with my own body, I find those women with curves like genuinely very beautiful. Not like just saying that as a mantra, but like really being like, wow, like they just look so embodied in a way.
Yeah, we have to define what we're talking about here. We're not, when we're saying endomorph, kapha, overweight, like we're not talking about a sloppy, when you don't think like a sloppy fat person. Like no, that's not, Allie and I are talking about somebody who's beautiful and has more curves to their body and is just naturally a little bit thicker with their muscle tone or, has a little bit of excess body fat, so don't get it twisted. Each of these categories, the bodies are beautiful in their own way.
Yeah. And it's appreciating what's beautiful about like, because they're also like, they embody someone's personality too, I think,
Yeah.
which is so important.
Well, they can, or if you're fighting it, then, so
that's
part of
another
it
episode.
yeah, it is another episode, which we're going to have shortly about, loving yourself and your body and appreciating what you were born with. But, you can only fight so much. And this is that kapha type, somebody who's like, I've been fighting my weight my whole life. And it's like, I love when I can get a client who's just like, this is me. I'm beautiful. I'm healthy. And you can be healthy at different sizes. So the measure of health is not necessarily like one look to another look.
I'm so glad you said that because one of the things I wanted to add when we were talking about the Vata type, because everyone's like, oh, I wish I looked like that. What's interesting about the research shows that they they're calling them tophies. Not that everyone who's thin is fat on the inside, but people they call them thin on the outside, fat on the inside, tophies. When they get to be older, they have twice the mortality rate as other people because they quote unquote never had to pay attention just because it didn't show up in their weight. They don't necessarily eat as well. And so,
yeah, that's my mom. My mom has always been so thin and she never needed to care about her food, other than for health. But she, as far as there wasn't an imminent reason for her to be eating better for weight loss. And now my mom, is pre-diabetic and high cholesterol. And it's just, all these things are happening to her in her middle age now.
Yeah. And so people think like, oh, they don't have to care, but it's, I mean, this is something that was really important in my own healing my relationship with food is like, yeah, all right. So I've had some shitty health things happen, but they've made me more aware that food is medicine and I've had to do the work and have them, to figure this out. I wouldn't have chosen it, but here's what I'm going to do with it. So I just want to put that there because it's so important. And there's even some research. I remember being at nutrition school and it was Barry Sears. Who was it that came in and talked about how in some research, people who are 30 pounds overweight, quote unquote, according to the BMI scale, actually have higher longevity rates. And they hypothesize because your fat, stores toxins. When you're really thin, your body is just like processing those day in and day out. Versus if you have some extra weight, your body doesn't actually have to be exposed to them. Now, some people will say that's bunk. Other people, I mean, look, I'm starting to become a little question of like any research that is the final answer. Like I just don't believe that. So, but
yeah.
let's get to the kapha and how they should work out. I want to make sure that they back to that.
So I think the kapha, a lot of times I see them relish in the fact that they are strong and it's really exciting to them. So I will see a lot of kapha body types doing more CrossFit style exercising, where it's not even as cardio based. It's more, heavy weight training and deadlifting and squatting. And, obviously, you have to start where you are and, be coached on these things properly. But because they just are naturally stronger in their body, that, the fact that they can lift heavier weights than the average person off the bat without even trying can be very, very empowering for them. So I think there's that they could try. I also do, but I think that you need to have some aerobic training with it, not the high intensity interval training, like sprinting on a treadmill. Oftentimes their joints are not that equipped to handling that. And it can lead to like shin splints and knee pain and ankle pain. So I think more aerobic style, like, walking, speed walking on a treadmill or outside, or the elliptical for 30 minutes. You really don't need to be doing more than that. You're getting diminishing returns with cardio unless you're training specifically to have endurance. You don't need to be doing more than like 30, 40 minutes. The spin class, I mean, that would be, that they're usually 45 minutes. That would be an upper level, but that's a good thing for the kapha because it's not, it's a lot more, it's a more aerobic. It's, it can be steady state. There are definitely intervals in there, but you're moving the whole time. There's only so much intensity you can create because, you're not stopping and going. You're continuously moving. So I'd say a combination of that, a little bit more steady state cardio. And then if they can get in like really like heavy training, heavyweight training, it can just feel really good for their body because they're naturally stronger.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm almost wondering, I mean, granted, I love hip hop dance classes, but would they do well with like Zumba? And I'm thinking especially like places where they can get into their body and appreciate how it moves.
Yeah, for sure. Dance is great for that. That's that steady state cardio too. Dance is awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember going to hip hop with you at Koresh in Philly and you were so good. I was like, oh my God, Juliet is totally from New York City and totally cooler than me.
Well, no, I danced competitive,ly when I was growing up. I was on a hip hop dance team.
You didn't tell me that. You just let me judge myself. Oh,
I don't like to tell people that I just like go in there and it's just like, so good, but nobody knows why. No, I'm kidding. I haven't done that in a long time.
Oh my God, I loved it. I had to stop going though because it was like we went at 8:00 at night and I couldn't sleep. Like it kept me up too much.
Definitely pumps you up when you do that kind of stuff.
All right, so with the kapha, they need to be doing more heavyweight training, like that makes them feel really strong. Like how many days a week?
For the kapha, I would say like 2 to 3.
Okay, and then the steady state cardio.
I would say for the kapha that they need to be exercising like 5 days to 6 days per week.
Yeah.
Like consistent exercise, like, of the cardio training, even the days that they're not weight training to make sure that they're getting in cardio and moving their body. So I would say, they're the 5 to 6 day per weeker exercisers.
Yeah. And I just want to I thought of a great client story here because you were emphasized on doing something you love and how important that is. And I had a client who hadn't been working out for a while and had some injuries and some arthritis and inflammation that we were working on, getting out, healing her gut, healing her blood sugar. And she was like, whenever I do like what I think I should do, I hurt a lot. But then she was at her family had a surprise party for her the one night and she loves to dance and she danced all night at her party. And I was like, were you hurt the next day? And she's like, not at all. And I'm like, then do that more often. Like, I do believe there's something about, to your point, when you're injuring yourself, it's not the right fit. And she was like, no, I can't believe it. My feet don't hurt. Nothing hurt. That's amazing that I was on my feet dancing for 4 hours. And the next day I felt amazing. And so, I love that you've emphasized, and I just want to repeat it as the episode ends, that we're giving you some guidelines if your goals are weight loss and general health. But to your point, like, do what you love, because would you say the most important thing, Juliet, is consistency? Like, no matter what you do.
100% consistency and not stressing out your body more than we're already stressed in our daily lives. So if you're doing an exercise routine that is giving you grief, and I'll use CrossFit as an example for myself. I tried it and wanted to like it. And every time I would be on my way to go, I would have severe anxiety about it, where I was just like, I can't believe I have to do this right now. I don't want to go. And I never had that before with any other exercise program. And it was like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this to myself? And I have friends that are like obsessed with it. They love it, and I'm like, it's just not for me. And I would go there and I would just be anxious the whole time. Part of it is, the competitiveness of it, of being up on the board. And I think it just, it kind of messed with my head a little bit because I don't do well with that kind of pressure. I like to put the pressure on myself, but I don't like other people to be seeing what I'm doing,
I totally get it. I even hate, I mean, I'm pretty confident I'm okay, like not being super in shape, but I even hate in classes when they're like, pick a partner. And I'm like, oh no, am I going to be like strong enough for my partner? Like, what if I can't like help them get as good of a workout? Like, I just hate it. I'd rather just be competitive with myself. I know it's so silly, but.
No, I get it. I mean, we get that feedback a lot. Sometimes we do partner work at our studio and we get that feedback and we're very conscious of it. We try to encourage our instructors to do grouping instead of partnerships a lot, like group 1, group 2. So everyone's still working on their own pace because it does I totally get scary. I get it. You don't want to be, if you're stuck with somebody that's like super crazy shape and there's somebody who's never worked out before, that's just not a fair partnership right there.
Yeah. So we're getting to the end, but you just brought up this point and I wanted to make sure to get this question in because I think what I really hope that people get, not just from this episode, but that our podcast in general is just that health is a very dynamic process. And, I talked about, running quote unquote worked for me in high school, but now it's like clearly something I never plan on doing at length again. But when people have a lot of stress in their life, like they're going through a job change or they're insomniacs, they can't sleep, or they're going through stuff with their kids or they're moving and like life is just really intense. How do you adjust your workout routine? Because I would imagine keeping up that same intensity, because even though workout is a good stress, it's still a stress, and that accumulation during those periods, what do you suggest?
Yeah, I would say that you sometimes, just cutting back how much you were doing it. Like if you were somebody who was doing it 5-6 days a week, it's okay to then cut it back to 3 days a week. Nothing bad's going to happen. You're still going to maintain your level of, intensity or your level of performance rather. You're not going to lose it all because people get worried about that. But sometimes you need to do more yoga. Sometimes you need to be doing more cardio for de-stressing. I know when my father passed away, for me, it was all about getting on the elliptical and for an hour, just listening to music and sweating it out and just needing to clear my head. And that was a good thing for me when I was in the morning process of that. I couldn't do anything that was yoga. I couldn't focus enough for something like yoga. So it kind of depends on the kind of stress that you're dealing with in your life. Does that make sense?
Totally. Well, and also, I'm so big on my clients knowing their own patterns. Like some people need to sweat it out and other people, that idea is like stressful to them and they need to do yoga. And so, I totally know. I think there's a time, especially after a loss like that it's.
So close your eyes. I would say to people, close your eyes, take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and visualize some different kinds of exercise and notice the feeling inside that you get, based on the different kinds that you're picturing. And, if you're feeling a level of stress or overwhelm, then just swipe that picture to the right, or the left. What do you do when you swipe it away? And then take on the next image and, and find one that resonates with you and then try that. That's what I would say to do.
I love that you said that because I was just in a session with a client and we were talking about, she hadn't worked out since training for a triathlon. And, she was like, when I was training for the triathlon, like, I just was like, oh, I just want to cross train. And she didn't because she was, in this training plan. But I was like, see, you knew then what you really liked. It's just a matter of, again, the permission. And I hope that today, by talking about the different body types, these are not set in stone, but it plants the seed that like, whoa, like I have to work out according to where I am in my life and what my body really likes versus this generic template that because my neighbor's doing it or because this person on Instagram is doing it, that's what's right for me. And really, to your point, that exercise you just gave them is wonderful. Like listen to that intuitive response and trust it. And as long as you're consistent, you're not going to, a lot of people don't do that because they fear, oh my God, then I'm going to eat everything and then I'm going to gain weight. But it's like, no, the only way to get out of that pattern is to do it and see that's not what happens. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Juliet. This was so informative. I am so excited I have not been doing my intervals this year yet, but I'm so excited to get back to doing that now that I know that I'm on the, that it makes sense and that, it's just good to know. And also to max out my weights a little bit more because I still have some in me when I've been taking my classes. So thank you so much, everyone. Again, this was episode 6 on figuring out how to exercise for your body type. And Juliet, do you want to wrap us up here?
Yeah, we have so much great content coming, everybody. And, it's just the beginning. We would love if you could leave us a review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to us. And stay connected with us if you can on social media, or you can email us with your questions. So I'm at Juliet Unite on both Instagram and Twitter. You can find Allie at Allie M. Shapiro. She's also on Instagram and Twitter. And then AllieShapiro.com is where you can find other resources, and JulietBerg.com as well. So we hope to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, we are happy to answer them and connect.
Yes, and remember, new episodes drop every Wednesday on Hump Motivation Day. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Insatiable Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can connect with us on social media. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Juliet Unite, and Allie at Allie M. Shapiro. M stands for Marie. Please feel free to also email us any questions. We would love to hear from all our listeners. You can reach us at Allie at AllieShapiro.com and Juliet at UniteFitness.com. We'll see you next time.